For anyone randomly stumbling across this, no, I'm not one of those YouTubers that gets on the webcam or whatever they do every day and says some kind of inspirational quote or message or gives some kind of anecdote about their personal life and says, this is why I strive to be a little bit better every day, or this is that one time I failed at doing XYZ, and this is what I did to pick myself up to make sure I don't do that again. And you probably hear barking dogs in the background. Yeah, that's the thing. No matter where I move to, there's always some kind of background noise. Here, probably barking dogs. May hear some kind of noises and stuff downstairs. Like, don't be surprised if you hear a buzzing chainsaw. I live in an apartment above a lawnmower place, so that's why that sound might be there. Though, that thought's kind of weird. Somebody going to get their lawnmower repaired or fixed up when it's this freaking cold outside. If you've looked at the weather, great big cold sweep. Great big cold zone. Covers, or this is applicable to the US. For other countries, I'm not quite sure. You guys might have something funky too, I'm not entirely sure, but covers the extent, or covers half of the US. The only places that kind of barely squeak out of there is in they aren't in this horrible cold sweep. On the coast. On the coast, your stereotypical Florida, all the coast-facing states. Even Texas didn't escape this stuff. Like, snow in Houston, Texas. Frickin' snow. I was actually considering trying to move down there to escape from the frickin' snow. I hate the snow. I've ranted about this before. Don't be surprised how many times it pops up over the next 3 to 4 months or maybe even into March. I live somewhere where it's not unusual for it to be snowing in the middle of March. Ugh, I hate winter. Not going to go too far with that, though. I don't know. Felt like doing another rambly live event things. I'm not sure when the next time I'm actually going to make a video is, or when I'm going to have time to sit down and do something like this. I'll say this much, there's a world of difference between sitting down and editing a video, and sitting down and doodling something, or hell, it's been a long time since I've worked in Photoshop or Illustrator at that. Need to install those programs again. I don't know. I felt like it'd be interesting to drop those for a while and go back to the basics, like actually focus more on line work or simplistic shapes, getting used to just limiting how many different colors or types of lines I had available to me, really limiting what I was working with, and seeing what results I could produce with just that. Honestly, after several months or even a year of working with more limited supplies and colors and such, I kind of prefer just working with pencils and pens. My previous stuff, I use just about every color I have access to. Like, it's bright, it's ridiculously vibrant. If I were sticking with graphic design or illustration or something, like if I were going to go headfirst in that direction and freelance, that'd be fine. I'd probably continue going in that particular direction. It'd be a good idea to pick up some color theory, but it's not like somebody would tell me, hey, you can't use all those colors. It's gonna be hell on the printer or something like that. But I'm still attached to this ridiculous nut bar idea that someday might actually be able to get into animation or be some kind of cartoonist or animator, or even a storyboarder. And what's the first thing that comes to mind when you're thinking about going into storyboarding? You have to be able to draw characters quickly so that you can set up basic ideas and boards based on somebody's screenplay. The faster you can draw something, or the more quickly you can convey a certain idea, the easier it'll be to draw up several storyboards over the course of a given day, because there's a high likelihood that a lot of those are going to be rejected or scrapped or whatever else. Even if it's just something you're working on solo, you're probably going to be drawing tons of different ideas or mapping out several different potentials. And there's probably going to be several that get thrown out. So the more quickly you can set something up and go through said ideas and figure out what you want to keep or what you want to get rid of, the easier it's going to get to the polished or final stages of the process. I am nowhere near that. When it comes down to it, man, I am jealous. I am so freaking, or no, envious is the right term here. So freaking envious of one of my buddies who can just, he can sketch up a comic in over the course of a couple of hours. It takes me half a day to just map out something. I just don't have that speed, man. I just don't. When I actually have money again, I almost have tempted to take another life drawing class where they bring in actual live models and stuff, have them pose and be forced to get the basics of a pose in under 20, 30 seconds, gesture drawing, that kind of thing. The one thing I can think of, person that really wants to learn how to draw or sketch faster, a life drawing class. And they're not insanely expensive either. I live in the middle of nowhere, and there's a urban area fairly close by where you have a couple of different art centers, and every so often they offer community classes for life drawing, bring in nude models and stuff. You just gotta look around. This stuff's out there for far more affordable rates than having to go straight to an art school or the local college to take a class like this. Probably be like 70 to $100 out of pocket, but that's still a lot cheaper than going through the rigmarole you'd have to at a community college or something like that. Granted, I'm not saying don't take the college class if you absolutely want to. Go for it. It just means saving up a bit more. Just saying there are affordable options out there for this stuff. And that's one of the best tools or things I could think of that would force you, put you in such a position that you have to develop this skill. When you're flying solo or trying to learn these skills or develop and hone them by yourself, it's so easy to give into the temptation to just sit and watch dumb YouTube videos or say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it eventually. Just keep putting it off and procrastinating. But when you're in a class, that's part of the appeal of taking an art class versus learning stuff yourself for some things. You're in an environment to where you have to do this stuff on a day-to-day basis. You have to do something specific for an assignment. I guess it just depends from person to person. That'd be the biggest argument in favor of taking an art class for certain things over flying solo on some things. Another argument in favor of taking a class that you're more likely to meet people that way. I'm just rambling here, so take what I have to say with a grain of salt. Looking at some of the comments here, yeah, you pretty much pegged it. Whenever I bring up a stream anymore, yeah, it's pretty much because I'm bored, don't have a lot going on. That's been the case for the past week or so because work is taking a long time to actually pick up. This upcoming week, it's going to be pretty bad in regards to how busy I'm going to be, so I don't know. Yeah, bored right now and want to get at least some kind of content out and up there before I'm bogged down with work to the point where when I get home, I just don't want to do anything. Gonna be a couple of cases of that, just blah. Not gonna get too far into that particular discussion though. Okay. Oh, uh, yeah, looking at the comments again here, in regards to drawing bugs, when I was in college, I was a fine art major. Didn't really go for a specific angle of illustration or something else. I think I was still trying to get through that ridiculous rough patch of, oh, I'm embarrassed by the fact that I like to draw cartoon characters in anime. I don't want my classmates to see me drawing this stuff because it's embarrassing. So went the route of, I'm going to pick a realistic subject. I'm going to make myself learn how to draw realistically. I did manage to achieve that particular goal, but I was also one of those weirdos that was like, I don't want to draw the same stuff everybody else is, because everybody else is picking flowers or animals or landscapes or your fairly generic run of the mill stuff. What's something alien, interesting to draw, and not a lot of people draw it conventionally. There's a lot of people who draw bugs, but in a select class of people, how likely is it that you're going to run across somebody that want to draw, let's say, the Garuda wasp over a monarch butterfly or a butterfly with a gorgeous design on its wings? A person would be more likely to draw the monarch butterfly than the Garuda wasp. I wanted to draw the weird alien looking thing because that sounded a lot more fun to me. It's something weird. It's something fantastical. It's real, but because if you see close up pictures of bugs and stuff, they look so weird, and it just pushes the borders of your imagination. It kind of gets the cogs in your brain turning it, or at least it does for me anyway. Just we live in a world where these horrifying, nightmarish things exist. I like drawing bugs because they're interesting subjects to me. That's it. If I were going to say that I have any kind of genre that I entertain or something outside of drawing generic cartoon characters and stuff like that, it's surrealism, kinda. It's more like I don't want to map out something conventional. I want to draw a bunch of weird different stuff. Give me a couple of minutes. The dog is the dog is judging, or the dog is implying he wants to go out, so I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, just got back from Dog's Outside Adventure, which was pretty much opening the back door and letting him do his thing. So, nothing fantastic there. God, I'm such a boring person. I'm so boring. Wake up, typical day, go to work, come home. Probably eat Hot Pockets or something that I really shouldn't. Then go back to bed. Recently, I've been staying up until 2 or 3 in the morning. That's really going to screw up my circadian rhythm. Hmm. Before this, I checked out the Christmas special for Bunsen is a Beast, Butch Hartman's newest cartoon. I was talking with a couple of buddies on Skype, and they were all like, this is the worst Christmas special ever. It was #1 on somebody's personal list of worst Nickelodeon Christmas specials. Apparently, it was worse than the Breadwinners Christmas special, according to them, so of course that raised my eyebrows a little, since, well, Breadwinners is considered one of those, it's panned as one of those god-awful, one of the worst cartoons of all time by quote-unquote cartoon reviewers, which are pretty much 20-somethings that have a questionable knowledge of cartoons and review them on the internet. I include myself in that snarky quip right there. Queued it up, watched it, had the exact same reaction since the first time I tried to check out Bunsen is a Beast. I watched the first episode of it when the show was still fairly new when it first came out. And it's just this feeling of sheer disappointment. Hartman and his team, at their best, at their prime, they're great at comedy. They're great at comedic timing and setup. Jokes where the character does a wink, wink, nudge, nudge with the audience. Like, a character will make say a Captain Obvious line, and then they follow it up with something that is punchy, that works. Oh, sorry, it sounded like the dog was getting into something. And sorry, I need to see what the dog's up to. Cotton! Cotton, no! What did you just dig out of the trash? What were you doing? What did you just eat? What did you just eat? Ugh, great, the dog ate something weird. Cotton, come up here. Stay there. God. That's what I get for having a trash can so close to the ground. Damn it, dog. Ugh. I better put this trash can up to where you can't reach it. No, you're not getting any more weird garbage treats. Ugh. Okay. Okay, I'm done ranting. You guys just love the fact that this dog's name is Cotton, don't you? Going to get endless references to King of the Hill just because of his name. Jeez, yeah. Yeah, imagine me yelling at Cotton Hill if that makes it that much more entertaining or exciting to you. I don't care. Okay. Getting back to discussing Bunsen as a Beast. Or do I really want to keep up that particular discussion? To boil it down to the main point, it has all the bare bones and setup for a Hartman production, but it just doesn't have the effort, the timing, the for lack of a better description, that makes a Hartman cartoon so entertaining. It has a shell of it, not the meat. It just feels so hollow. Maybe it's just me, as somebody who grew up with Hartman cartoons, like Fairly Odd Parents, that being the big front runner. It's so hard to go back and watch one of the original or first episodes of Fairly Odd Parents, speed up to some of the current cartoons now, watch an episode of Bunsen or something like that. It feels like you lose a chunk of your soul watching it. There's just, what happened? For Fairly Odd Parents, you can point the finger at seasonal rot, network mandates, what have you. Bunsen is a beast. I don't know. By this point, I'm not going to say it's the creator or the writing team's fault. I'd just like to know what happened or what sapped the energy and creativity out of the production. I'd like to know what would happen if Hartman and his team went indie or made a production where they didn't have some kind of network mandate or something like that. Like, what would happen? I remember seeing a couple of apps and stuff floating around, and that Hartman's been doing some indie stuff. I need to check that out. I want to give the benefit of the doubt here and say that there's something else going on behind the scenes that we just don't know. For a while, I was kind of skeptic of some of McFarlane's cartoons because what happened with American Dad and Family Guy. Get a bit further down the line, and you don't just have mediocre or bad episodes, but these are just nightmarish and horrifying. It's hard to directly point a finger at something and say that it's because of this. It's because of XYZ. It's probably more because of the culmination of things. You can't just point a finger at one thing and say that that's the issue. I'd like to hear from the production side what results and things like that, or what led to the downfall of. Just for the record, I don't think the Bunsen is a Beast Christmas special is the worst one out there. It's just run-of-the-mill and mediocre bad. If you subtract other Hartman cartoons, sort of look at it as its own thing, it's just mediocre. It has a couple of funny jokes, but that's it. A couple of funny jokes doesn't save a Christmas special. It's just mediocre. Of course, there's a lot worse out there. Far, far worse. Like somebody mentioned Rhapsody Street Kids or something like that. Those are those are the pinnacle of horrible Christmas specials. Bunsen is just run-of-the-mill mediocre bad. Bunsen is an ongoing TV series on Nickelodeon. It's Butch Hartman's newest ongoing episodic series on there. I can't really say too much about it other than comments on the first episode or even the Christmas special, because that's all I've watched. That's all I can really get myself to watch. Also, just for the record, bringing up McFarlane as a point of reference, the only reason I brought up his stuff is more of a frame of reference as to what happens with the series that just keeps going and going. Like, this person is known for being incredibly creative and talented, but if the series has been going so long, some of that original creativity and what made the series good, it decays over the course of the years the longer it goes. That's happened with two different McFarlane productions. That doesn't reflect on the guy himself, though. Some of his live-action movies, and even Orville, have fantastic writing to him. He definitely still has that same talent. He still has that spark. It's just a matter of avoiding. I guess if anything, okay, no, I'm just rambling here. just bringing up that point of reference, I'm wondering what kind of productions would Butch Hartman and some of his writing staff and such produce if they were independent or working with a series or concept that they were really passionate about. That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if just for rough comparison's sake here, is there a concept or idea that Hartman has that could be on par with what kind of passion and energy people see with McFarlane's Orville? That's what I'm curious about. Seen a couple, or discussed the idea of Danny Phantom a couple of times, the fact that he's really excited and passionate about that. What if he was allowed to take the reins and take it in the direction that he wanted to? What would we see? What kind of production would that look like, or what would it look like? In regards to long-running series, a long-running series, it's not a guarantee that it'll decay or worsen with years. It's just highly likely. There's just more cases of it than not. It doesn't apply to every series. It's just, when you think of the longest-running cartoons out there, okay, there's a couple exceptions I can think of that, I don't know. I'd say that for as long as King of the Hill was on the air, that was one of the ones that managed to stay strong. Though the caveat there is, it did have an ending. It did have an end point. I don't know. I guess it depends on the series. There's some that could probably pull it off and stay strong over the course of the entire series. It's just easier to point at examples like The Simpsons, SpongeBob, Family Guy. It's just easier to point fingers at those because they're notoriously bad. We've seen far more reviewers cover something like the worst SpongeBob episodes out there, or the worst Family Guy episodes, because there's something so upsetting or grotesque or horrible at their core. Where with the longer running series, if you have something that's well written and fairly positive, it's less likely that someone's going to cover it, or there aren't going to be quite as many people that cover it. It's In regards to South Park, kind of mixed feelings about the more recent seasons. Been keeping tabs on the newer episodes. I don't know. I'm one of the people that was in the camp where I didn't think the last season before the current one. Mixed feelings about it. They were working with some pretty interesting concepts and ideas. Had a lot of fun jokes and stuff in there. Just kind of mixed bag on having an overarching plot. In the case of South Park, though, I'd rather give them the benefit of the doubt. Considering how long the series has been going, I'd say it's a much different case from something like Family Guy, American Dad, SpongeBob, etc. Those are pretty much trapped in the pigeonhole of running out of ideas, trying to scrape something together, or throwing something at the wall to see if it sticks, or having to go in an incredibly radical direction to, okay, I don't know where I'm trying to go with this. In the case of series like that, it feels like every interesting or plausible idea has been done, or they're having trouble coming up with new or interesting ideas. In the case of South Park, they were trying something new and different with format. They were going a little bit out of their comfort zone and trying something new to keep things new and exciting. Another thing to consider, South Park has an interesting position in that they're at the point where they can produce stuff fairly quickly. They're probably the one cartoon out there that can get away with making references to memes or pop culture or whatever else and get away with it, because it comes out within a time frame to where it's still relevant. It's still fresh in somebody's mind. It's still funny. It's one of those things that manages to overcome hurdles that other productions would face. Like, just for sake of example here, South Park could get away with poking fun at something like the elf practice meme, whereas American Dad, Family Guy, etc. probably couldn't. Because by the time Family Guy cracked a joke at it, it'd be months or even a year later because of how long it takes to produce or set up an episode for it. South Park, they could get an episode out within a month, or within a couple of months that was still relevant and still kind of funny. But that's a pretty bad example on my part, considering that's probably one of the lowest brow jokes or references that you can make. Just putting it out there, or working with the idea. Okay, I'm going to put a pin in this particular discussion since I've pretty much said as much as I really want to say on that particular topic. Not really sure if I'd be going in a direction to where it'd be a significant or interesting discussion. If I were going to do a point-by-point comparison or breakdown of what makes South Park different or unique compared to other adult cartoons, I want to do some more research and set up something a bit more structured than what I'm doing right now, because I'm just rambling. I'm just going to bring up the same points over and over again and not really... I'm just going to shelve that particular discussion for now. Also, thank you for the spoilers in the comments section about RWBY. I stopped watching at the end of Volume 3, I think it is. I think they're up to Volume 5 now. That goes to show how much I actually know about it. And now that you mentioned that probably my favorite character out of the franchise has been killed, nope, not interested anymore. Definitely not watching it now. Nope. I'll be honest. It was one of those things where probably would have tuned into it eventually, but it wasn't really high up there on my list. That spoiler pretty much sensed that I am not going to tune into it again anytime soon. So, thank you. Thank you for that unwanted spoiler. Thank you very much. Sorry to sound kind of just blah. Gonna switch gears a little bit. In regards to RWBY itself, kind of mixed feelings on the writing for that. I'll give them this much: there's a lot of credit to be given to Rooster Teeth, the production team behind it. RWBY really is a unique production in that it's made by an indie team. And hell, they were going for a CG anime aesthetic when that was still kind of an iffy territory. There were few shows working with that, or even giving it a chance. Speed up a couple of years. Their production values have increased. I'll give them credit. The graphics are pretty gorgeous. Definitely took their time with rendering and setting up fairly immersive worlds, gorgeous character design. Just really slowly pushing that much more on the development side of things. Really challenging the idea that CGI isn't a good tool for making some kind of anime, let alone in... Okay, I don't know if anime is the right term to describe this, but some kind of animation production with an anime style aesthetic. Kind of interesting to think about when you get to now. It took until 2016, 2017 for actual anime companies and productions to start considering CG as a more viable tool, or more accurately for productions to come out that people are hailing as, hey, this is viable, this is a thing. I've been playing with the idea of checking out a series called Land of the Lustrous, just because I've heard fantastic things about how they set things up in CGI, how they render the characters, how gorgeous and high production the worlds are, that their production values and overall aesthetic can compare to some of the other studios out there and stuff. That CG can finally stack up against traditional animation, or more conventional animation. Looking at some of the comments here in regards to abridged anime series. I've tuned into Team 4 Star stuff a couple of times, watched through the Dragon Ball Z abridged. Need to get caught up on that. I really need to get caught up on that. I kind of casually watched it before, but my boyfriend keeps pretty avid tabs on the series. One of the most I'm gonna give his take on it because it's kind of interesting. He considers himself a fan of the original Dragon Ball. When he thinks of Dragon Ball, or the Dragon Ball franchise as a whole, he thinks the best writing and spirit and theme was in the original series. He liked what kind of humor and characterization they went for, how light-hearted everything was, that there was a sense of adventure to exploring the world, or following Goku on his adventures through this world. And you just kind of lose that when you transition over to Dragon Ball Z and things get a bit grittier, and it's a big bad of the week. How's Goku going to take down this particular villain? And things just slowly escalate further and further to the point where it's not exploring this big grand world or seeing what interesting stuff would be in the environment around these characters. It's more like, what big bad is out there in the universe next? Who's going to challenge Goku's godlike might next? And just that kind of thing. In his opinion, the guys that set up Dragon Ball Z Abridged, the way that they write dialogue or set things up, they do so in such a way that it carries over, makes an homage to Dragon Ball. That, of course, my phone is buzzing right next to the freaking microphone. He likes it because he likes it for the jokes and such like that, but the big thing that drew him in was that the writers definitely, the way that they write some of the dialogue or set up certain things, supposedly it's written in such a way that it's a love letter to Dragon Ball in some respects. He actually gone so far as to say, if you want to get caught up on Dragon Ball, start with the original Dragon Ball, then watch through DBZ Abridged to get the significant bits and pieces of characterization you need for that particular chunk of the series. The one official Dragon Ball thing he's been keeping tabs on recently is Super. Because apparently there's been several chunks and pieces of it that capture more of the spirit and characterization you like in Dragon Ball. That it has more of that spirit to it. That there's some more intriguing or interesting bits to it. It managed to bring him back to the franchise. That's just the most interesting take I've seen or heard about DBZ Abridged. I also check out productions, or I've also checked out Little Karibo's Yu-Gi-Oh! I've only done so in spurts, though, so I can't really say much about it. It pretty much boils down to, I love how exaggerated Joey Wheeler's Brooklyn accent is. The Brooklyn Rage parody song that they came out with. How they decided to just... I really can't say much about it because I haven't seen enough. Though my absolute favorite, my personal favorite for anime abridged series. I've mentioned this several times. I shill this every chance I get. Sword Art Online abridged. That one is my absolute favorite, hands down. It's been discussed to death, and when people say that this is how Sword Art Online should have been written, they're telling the truth. It's one thing to say that the series had so much potential, anyone could do a better job writing it. It's another to say that these guys took it and did something interesting with it. It's written and set up in such a way that only this team of people could achieve this kind of result. You can say, or you can make comments about how much better Sword Art Online could have been all you want. But it's another thing to actually go and execute a series that brings some kind of heart and characterization to it. That's another thing entirely. It is so easy for someone to go for the low-hanging fruit and jokes. But the abridged series that stand out, like Dragon Ball Z abridged, Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, or even Sword Art Online abridged, what makes them stand out, if you look at the comments from people who actively listen to or watch them, it's because the people behind it give a damn. They have a frame of reference for what they're parodying. In the case of Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball Z abridged, the team behind it, they obviously love the Dragon Ball franchise. They're making a love letter homage to it. They're dumping a lot of time, effort, and energy to make it something unique and creative. Pretty much the same thing for Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, and not entirely sure what the case for the Sword Art Online abridged crew is, but they definitely put a lot of time, effort, and energy into making something really clever and entertaining. The only reason I'm going out of my way to set this up or describe it as such is that there's a lot of abridged anime series out there. A lot of series that just go for the baseline jokes or references that they could. Like, if you were going to make an anime abridged series, what's the first thing that comes to mind when just writing an episode for it? Oh, I can just make or toss in a couple of references to the series, poke fun at one of the most obvious jokes, and then throw in a couple of references to memes or something like that. Like, the most basic things you could think of. If you want to make the series stand out or just to cut above, you kind of have to take pages from some of these other guys, pretty much take pages from DBZ Abridged or whatever else. The fact that they go above and beyond, that there's a storyline or something they do with the characters that is different from the series they're parodying. That this could stand by itself. That it could be recognized as a unique creative work on its own rather than having to lean so heavily on the series. It's just pointing at it saying, ha ha, poking fun at the most obvious jokes. Just probably not describing this the best way I could, but yeah. Ah. Damn it, getting kind of distracted right now. I haven't seen the Final Fantasy Abridged. I'll say this much, I'm more likely to watch an abridged series if I have some kind of frame of reference or context for what the series they're parodying is. The reason why I consider the Sword Art Online abridged series my favorite is because several years ago, I was trying to get into anime for the first time, watching through series. I got as far as episode 9 or 10 of Sword Art Online before I just gave up and quit. I was so disappointed by the series. It's not the most original premise or concept out there, but they were taking things in an interesting direction. I was willing to see where they took things for a fun, for a fun, different take on being trapped. And I think one of the reviewers I watched pretty much had the best of it when they said why this particular concept took the world by storm when it did. There weren't any other shows doing it at that time. It was interesting in that kind of respect. I'm just it was kind of a different concept from some of the other stuff out there. I was majorly disappointed by it. It just struck that much stronger of a nerve that I felt alone in thinking that Sword Art Online kind of bad. I was alone for so long on that. And my group of friends, my group of other buddies that like to watch anime, they all loved it. I couldn't lay a finger on Sword Art Online. That's probably why I have such a grudge against the series. And just yeah, that's a huge part of why I like the Abridged series, because I'm one of those people that has a personal grudge against that particular anime. I really don't need to dig much further than that, though, because again, it's a dead horse topic. I don't want to be one of those YouTubers that just continually comes back to this and continues beating the dead horse. Oh, there's a Hunter x Hunter Abridged series? Maybe just have to oh jeez. I'm interested in checking that one out, but kind of tentative too at the same time, because yeah. I'll have to give that a watch at the very least. I am one of those dorks that considers Hunter x Hunter the best shonen anime ever. And you cannot tell me otherwise. You cannot! Would you play Sword Art Online if it were real? No! No, I would not. I have some frame of reference or familiarity with MMOs, but when I say that, I played World of Warcraft for about a year when I was 14. That's it. That's as far as my experience goes. That is it. I think a lot of that boils down more to I don't really have much interest in playing or checking out MMORPGs in general. As to the construction of the game, or the gameplay, or whatever else, there have been people that have done a breakdown of how bad the mechanics and gameplay are. I couldn't do that. I don't have enough frame of reference for what a good MMORPG is. Because I just haven't explored the genre or played enough games. I was 14 when I played World of Warcraft. Okay? I was 14 years old. I was doing I was a very baseline average player. Very average player. I did enough to get quests done, and maybe get slightly better gear for the character I was playing. I picked Hunter. My character was a hunter because I liked the idea of going out and figuring out what kind of exotic pets I could tame and have running alongside my character. Another thing, this probably lowers whatever street, quote unquote, street cred or credibility I'd have at that. I played a male Blood Elf character because I thought the character model looked attractive. One of the biggest selling points for getting me to sit down and play this game was looking at an attractive character. It's kind of funny to look back on that now. The traditional classes and races and stuff you had, or no, the races you had for World of Warcraft originally, you had the Alliance, which had the more conventional, attractive kinds of characters, and then you had the Horde, which had your more monster or kind of rougher around the edges looking characters. Blood Elves, you would expect them to be part of the Alliance if you were looking at it from just a purely aesthetics angle. Nope. Nope, they were Horde. They were Horde. That Blood Elves were the only reason I ever played a Horde character. Otherwise, I would have played just Alliance. Oh man, it's probably a good thing that my boyfriend isn't here right now, because he'd probably join in and give an entire spiel about World of Warcraft. He used to be one of those hardcore World of Warcraft players. I'm not going to get into the meat or details about that, because that's his story to tell, his experiences to share, not mine. But he was one of those players that could give you a specific rundown of what you need to be a successful warlock, hunter, etc. To sort of plan out how to get around quest chains, or how to get the best kind of gear and stuff. He was really into it. I actually had an interesting discussion with him last night about it. He's one of those kinds of people that's nostalgic for vanilla WoW and that kind of stuff, because there were some interesting rough around the edges elements to it that you just don't have now. Everything's a lot more clean and streamlined. I'll say this much, it's kind of interesting to hear somebody speak highly of their original experiences in World of Warcraft. Like, starting out, when the programming and such for it wasn't as refined or tailored as it is now, when they were still kind of playing with things, figuring out how to get this game to work, when people were still kind of stumbling through it themselves. Just someone being the first to come up with the right set of spells, or how to maximize what they could get out of a warlock, stuff like that. Versus someone like my dad, who started playing when things were still rough around the edges, but grew to like the game more over time because things were more easily accessible. Were more easily accessible and streamlined and easy to customize and get through. Just, I don't know. It's interesting from the perspective of, I was a very casual player for this game, so I only have so much frame of reference, whereas I've heard two different people talk about it, that avid players, one, definitely one of the more hardcore, dedicated players, the other, casual player too, but sticking around for a longer time than what I did, and definitely an avid player in the respect of, he has several level 60s, 70s, 80 characters. I don't think I could convince my boyfriend and my dad to come on to a live event and discuss their respective experiences in World of Warcraft, and discussing the pros and cons of different player experiences. But man, that could be a potentially interesting discussion. Okay, I'll say this much. Once I got a bit further into World of Warcraft, like halfway through playing over the course of a year, I'd also play undead characters, because I thought the undead were pretty cool. Pretty much, they have some pretty interesting background and lore to them. Their world was kind of gothic and Halloweeny. Also kind of liked playing gnomes. The only things that brought me back to World of Warcraft after I kind of fell off and stopped playing when I turned 15 or so was the appeal of making a gnome character and running them from Orgrimmar to Stormwind. I was one of those people that took a gnome, took off all their gear, this level 1 gnome, had him run from Orgrimmar, or no, from Stormwind all the way to Orgrimmar. That was just so ridiculously fun to me. It was tedious. It was it was an incredibly I did it a couple of times. Man, I do such stupid shit when I'm bored. I actually managed to make it to Orgrimmar a couple of times. And you can probably guess what happened as soon as I got that poor gnome through the front gates. Guards chased him, one-shot him. One-shotted that poor gnome. Came back from the graveyard a couple of times, tried to get a little bit further into Orgrimmar, got maybe a foot, dead. Another foot, dead. Again, please note that when I played this game, I was 13 or 14 years old. If I were going to return to it now, I'd be a bit more... I'd probably pick playing an undead character. Probably go for the hunter class again. Because, well, I'll just be honest, I have a bit of a... My biggest interest in that is that you can tame a bunch of different interesting-looking pets. But the bigger appeal this time around would be figuring out how to maximize things, how to get the most out of gameplay, going on adventures and quests and stuff. I'd actually have a bit more interest in exploring the world and playing the game. I will say this much, though. Is it really that bad to pick a player avatar based on how attractive or cool you think the character avatar looks? Is that really that bad? I'll say this much, I've played other games, like Saints Row 4, where as soon as I figured out how ridiculously customizable the character sliders and such were, I made a metallic green Hulk character with a Marge Simpson beehive, just because I could. You're going to be stuck with this character for a while. And if you have the option to customize them, why not? Why not spend some time on that? Sad thing is, the biggest claim to fame I have as any kind of gamer, or the game I sunk the most time into, the one game I can tell you some kind of lore bits about and discuss fan theories about, The Sims. The freaking Sims. My favorite PC game is The Sims 2. I used to spend hours pouring through forum posts and stuff, trying to figure out what happened to the character Bella Goth. When you look at The Sims, you don't see a game that has some kind of deep, interesting lore to it. But it's surprisingly deceptive. If you pull up Pleasant View or one of the neighborhoods and such and sort of look at the general Sims descriptions, there's people who really get into that. I'm one of those people that I'm going to go ahead and... I'm still fascinated by what happened to Bella Goth. Where did she disappear to? There's a Sims machinima maker that made this incredible series of machinimas based on what happened with the particular character. It starts with the story about, oh, she's cheating on her husband, she ran out on him, and then at the end she gets abducted by aliens, and then it goes from there. I'm honestly surprised by how far people can push the limits of this game, or just imagining what they'd have to go through to get all of the effects and such set up in such a way that some of the things that machinima makers do with The Sims, I'm curious as to what they do if they were working with real-life actors and cameras and cinematography and such. They definitely had the touch of a film school student. An aptitude or approach to storytelling that's incredibly in-depth and engaging. Some of the shots they pick, some of the ways they set up scenes, some of the ways they edit the stuff. And they're doing it with a life simulator game. A game that most people see as, oh, I'm going to live vicariously through this sim and have them get married, get a job, have babies. A game most people would pretty much play for that baseline effect. They're using it to create something that cinematic. I'm going to leave a link to this in case anyone wants to check this out. Even if you're not a fan of The Sims, it's just, you gotta admire this for the angles and cinematography and the visual storytelling alone. I'd even go so far as to, hell, I'll bet anyone involved in the animation industry or anything like that would probably tell you to look at every potential source of inspiration or thing out there. Look at different approaches someone would take to cinematography or setting up angles and stuff, because you never know. You never know where you're going to find inspiration or help you learn to push the boundaries of your projects. Might find it in the one place you didn't really expect. I'm going to link to this now rather than continuing to ramble about it. Find it. Come on, thing. I'm not going to try to say... I am not going to try to say this name since I would butcher it. Butcher it horribly. Just put the link in the comments section there. That is the Sims Machinima I've been mindlessly rambling about for the past minute or so. I think I should give some better context here. In The Sims 2, you have the Goth family. It's an elderly man, his adult daughter, Cassandra, and her younger brother, Alexander. And if you play The Sims 1, or the original Sims game, there was another family in there. You have the Goths there. It was just it was Mortimer, Bella, and Cassandra. Pretty much three-person family. Turned out to be really popular with Sim players and Simmers at that particular point. One of the favorite families in there. So, of course, they had to make another appearance in The Sims 2. In The Sims 2, when you look at the Goth family, the mom, Bella Goth, is missing. And if you look through character descriptions, profiles, or even the character's memories, she was abducted by aliens. But the thing is, if you know how alien abduction works in Sims 2, yes, in this game you can get abducted by aliens. What happens is that the character gets pulled away from the telescope, they disappear for about a night, then they get deposited the next day. If it's a male Sim, he comes back pregnant. Yes, I know this sounds incredibly ridiculous and weird. Well, Bella's just gone, period. The weirder part is if you dig through some of the mechanics and stuff of the game, she appears as being alive. But in order to add her back to the family, you pretty much have to bring in a third-party program to reinstate her there. You can bring her back with cheats, but you can bring her back with cheat codes, but she only stays for a day before she disappears, and the game gives you a prompt. There's an error here. This Sim is da-da-da-da. You get an error, and Bella's gone again. I don't remember if her character portrait still appears green after that or not, or if she gets grayed out. But that's probably the worst possible way a player could try and bring her back into the game and keep her as an active playable character. I tried that a couple of times. Did not work. The only way to bring her back successfully and have her be the true Bella, the one that's supposed to be there, is to install a program called SimPE and go through all the steps and stuff that you have to change the game code and reinstate her as an active character, that kind of stuff. The official story, or the official thing that Maxis puts out, the developers of the game, the real Bella is in Strangetown. There's 3 different neighborhoods that you can play in this game. Pleasant View, Strangetown, and Veronaville. Strangetown is your science fiction kind of weird place. You have a woman, an elderly woman who has a graveyard in her front yard full of ghosts. You have a family where the dad is an alien. He's a retired alien technician. Quote unquote technician. He used to be one of the aliens riding around in UFOs, abducting people and impregnating male Sims. He decided to settle down with a nice human woman, has a couple of kids, living the 1950s suburbanite life. You have a couple of mad scientists. This is pretty much where you have all the alien and sci-fi nonsense that the game plays with or touches on. Supposedly, Bella's been dropped off over here. She has amnesia, and she's one of the NPC characters that you can have your Sims randomly come across or interact with. The official story is that this is the Pleasant View Bella. She ended up in Strangetown. That's what's going on with that. But no, if you actually go through the monkey business to take this character out of this neighborhood and transplant her into Pleasant View, not only are you going to screw up your game, but none of her character stuff matches up. It doesn't match up with the other Sims. Of course the other Sims don't remember her. If she marries Mortimer, it'd be another Sim on the family tree. It just doesn't sync up. For someone who's really anal about character information or keeping things synced up to the point you want, the Strangetown Bella is pretty much a clone or a farce. If you want the true Bella, you have to use SimPE. That's just my take on it. Somebody else would probably give you a different rundown or take on it. That's just mine. I was way too into The Sims when I was 13, 14. Played it pretty much all the time. The thing is, Bella wasn't the only soap opera or the only story-driven element in Pleasant View. Pleasant View is pretty much your soap opera neighborhood. My personal favorites out of this group of ridiculous characters were Dawn Lothario and the Caliente sisters. The Caliente sisters, one is blonde, one's a redhead. The blonde is trying to swoop in, marry Mortimer, take his money. She's a gold digger. The redhead is just kind of along for the ride. So supposedly there's this conspiracy that they're trying to swoop in. They cut Bella out of the picture so the blonde, Dina, could step in and take the money. What's even funnier is that if you open up their family tree, some of their ancestors were aliens. They're related to aliens. So they're part alien. God, that just cracks me up now. Why Don is one of my favorites is that he's the town Casanova. He's involved with pretty much every adult female character in the neighborhood. He's engaged to Cassandra Goth, so you have yet another potential connection for all this soap opera dramatics. He's probably going to team up with Tina, and then what if he marries Cassandra and she marries Mortimer? They can dump the two and take all the money or something like that. So Don was involved with Cassandra, Dina, and Dina's sister. He's also involved with his maid. The same maid was also having an active affair with another guy in the neighborhood. who was married with the family and stuff, and just it branches out to soap opera theatrics and levels of ridiculousness. Soap opera neighborhood is the best way to describe it. Since I'm going off on this tangent, I might as well touch on Veronaville as well. That one was pretty much the Sims variant of Romeo and Juliet. You pretty much have Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet if they were Sims in the early 2000s. Terrible fashion choices and all. What especially kills me about this is that actually you don't just have Romeo and Juliet, you also have a Sims family based on A Summer Night's Dream. A Midsummer Night's Dream. You have a couple of characters named Oberon and Titania. What kills me is that some of these Sims are wearing face paint and stuff like that. Just one of the biggest appeals for setting up a game like this with preset character stories or interactions is sort of subverting it. Like, I've kind of been itching to go back and play this game. Queue up Veronaville, and you have the patriarchs of these two rival families, a Shakespeare story. You have the Capulets and the Montagues. What would happen if if you took the time to improve the character relations between the between these two grandpas? There's only two elderly men at the top of the family trees. All my rambling cut short. Have the two old guys fall in love and get married. You could do that. It'd be a pain in the rear and tedious to execute, but you could do that. And the most appealing part of playing the game like this, or setting up that kind of dynamic, is because there's kind of this unwritten rule of you should play this out as the developers intended. You should follow the story to the letter. You're supposed to focus on Romeo and Juliet. Let's do something else instead. Let's have the two old men fall in love and see what hijinks and craziness ensues from there. In regards to playing any kind of Sims game, yeah, you're pretty much playing God. You're pretty much playing God with virtual people. When I still played Sims 2 and World of Warcraft to some extent, I tried making Machinima once. It was a horrible mess. Those are actually floating around on the internet somewhere. My poor attempts at creating a Sims 2 and World of Warcraft Machinima, respectively. Robot, you can't make that kind of assumption about me. There's a lot of people that enjoy playing The Sims. A lot of people. It was a breakout hit for the longest time. A breakout hit with the preteens in my demographic and middle-aged moms. All the people across that spectrum and in between. Smash hit. And one of the interests I actually shared with my mom. I need to I need to see if I can convince her to queue up a Sims game again and then just sit and talk with her about it. That used to be pretty fun. I am not linking the machinima. You can just, if you figure out what my old username was, look it up on Google, you will find it. It's pretty easy to track down if you know what my previous pseudonym was. Also, I do still have all of my Sims 2 games back at my parents' house. Yes, I do still have all those. I also have the Sims 3 base game and all the expansion packs that come with that. I stopped playing The Sims when The Sims 4 came out. That just killed it for me. The Sims 4 killed the franchise for me. Lost interest, I guess. The thing is, I don't know if that's necessarily too big a loss, though, because when I used to be into this game, it was such a terrible time sink. I could spend close to 5-6 hours watching these virtual people just go to work, come home, go to work, come home. If you think about it too much, it actually leads to a bit of an existential crisis. Is there yet another bored soul that queues up my life every once in a while and watches me go through this horrible, sort of tedious rigmarole, day in, day out, get up, go to work, just compressing your life to this dull, mundane routine? And they're just pressing the fast forward button, waiting for the quote-unquote interesting parts. Like, I'm going to stop this discussion now because it's going places that are very depressing. Oh, I have been itching to queue up The Sims 2 again. I would sure as hell play that for the nostalgic value. Hell yes. Okay, I have reached the hour mark for this particular live event or stream or whatever. Pretty much like to make an hour or so the cutoff mark, so because that's already way too long for me rambling about essentially nothing. So, see you later, everybody. Plan on doing a Headcanon Hive later today at around 6 or 7. And gonna see what pops up from there. Just gonna be an open-ended discussion. Don't really have any set topics. May discuss favorite series of the year or something like that. We'll see.